you've got to choose something. It might be wrong. In fact, it will be wrong. I have scripts that I've written that are just not great, but I had to put it out there and then went back and did a whole rewrite, and then it got a little bit better, and then did a whole rewrite. But I couldn't have gotten to like the fifth rewrite that's pretty good unless I did the first draft that was bad. Welcome to the podcast Tapping Creativity with myself, Matthew C. Temple, and each week we're going to dive into questions and issues and inspiration around creativity and the creative process. I was just having this conversation with Sarah, my partner, about mistakes that we make or being wrong in relationship to relationships. But it really also comes into the creative process as well. Very often there's this sense that if I'm going to invest time into something, I want it to be good. I want it to be right. And that puts a certain kind of pressure on it. Or, I'm not sure, I've got these 5 different ideas. Which one am I going to do? And then it can be really hard to engage in that. Or, what I see kind of often too in working with screenwriting students and clients that I work with is that someone's like, oh, they could do this or they could do this or they could do this, and I'm not sure which it is. And that can be really paralyzing, right? Because you think, oh, I'm building a life for my character, and I need to make sure that I do it right, because if at the beginning they choose A instead of B, that puts them down a whole other path. Like if you've ever read those choose your own adventure books, you read like 5 pages and then it'll say, okay, now do you go, left into the tunnel or do you go right up the hill? And you're like, I'm gonna go left into the tunnel. You go left into the tunnel and they say, great, go to page like 84. And you flip to page 84 and you're like, oh, the tunnel, there is a pack of wolves that live in there and they're tearing to pieces. You're dead now. So like, the creative process can feel like a choose your own adventure book. And if you choose the wrong one, you go into the cave with the wolves and they eat you and you're dead. And like, now it's over. And there's a weight to that kind of pressure that I think so many people put on their creative endeavors. So like when I'm working with my students, I'll be, what? You've got to choose something. It might be wrong. In fact, it will be wrong. Particularly early in breaking story and kind of moving through, the process and figuring out what's really going to work, so much needs to be thrown away. But you can't actually know what needs to be thrown away until you've tried it. Is that writing something down, beginning to clarify, sometimes just tells you what was wrong about your idea or what not to do. And that's hard, particularly, if your time is precious or you're feeling that it's precious. Oh, if I spend an hour today working on this and I have to throw it away, like I really wanted to make progress for an hour. And then it's even worse if you work on a whole chapter in a book or you work on, a whole act of a movie and you're like, this act just isn't working. Or like when I started recording the Interracial Couple podcast with Sarah. The first 4 episodes, like it ended up taking a lot of editorial to make it even okay, right? Because we weren't good at doing a podcast yet. And then we got a little bit better at doing it. What we did with that, our choice there was come hell or high water, no matter what, we are putting that out there, even if it's terrible, if it's embarrassing, we've got to do it. And fortunately, we had someone who was able to edit it for us and kind of put it together. But those first 4, we really, really got in and worked stuff. And then we kind of got the hang of a little bit more. Those first ones were really bad, but we put them out there anyways. And I tell you that because I think that's really important. If we had been waiting to get a good one, we would have done 4. We would have had 4 bad ones and be like, we're not cut out for this. And not to mention that early on, by the time we set everything up and we're in Kenya and the sound's is not great and just kind of getting the hang of how to set things up and figuring out what we're going to talk about and all these things, it was a day of our lives working on a podcast. So we did 4. So we had 4 days of bad podcasts. Bad, I don't know. We've just gotten a whole lot better in the process of doing it, so that I don't know if they're bad. I haven't listened to them in months since they came out. But being able to actually go through and, put it out there, to make a commitment to doing it, even though it's not going to be great. Sometimes you spend time working on something, and by doing it wrong, by getting it wrong, you actually begin to see what, the road can be clarified not only by where you go, but where you don't go, and you see this in roads that are going through the mountains, right? Why don't we go up and down and up and down and through these different places? No, you basically say, well, we know we're not going to go up that super steep mountain, so we actually have to go around here, by knowing what we can't do. And you often also see in roads, there's like the old road and the new road, the old Redwood Highway, the new Redwood Highway. The old one at a certain point was like, it made more sense then, but now we've kind of grown. We have more cars. We've kind of, we can observe the landscape better because we can get up in airplanes and we can see what's going to work and all that. And now we say, that wasn't actually the best place to build the old Redwood Highway. There's a better place to put it, or old Topanga and new Topanga, And it's that way in the creative process. So being wrong and making these mistakes and going, and being willing to move forward anyways in order to clarify is just like super, super key in this process. And I can't overstate it enough, or I can't say it enough, that going ahead and making something and putting it out there, or committing to it, even if you don't put it out there. Yeah, the podcast we put out there. I have scripts that I've written that, that are just not great, but I had to put it out there, and then went back and, did a whole rewrite, and then it got a little bit better, and then did a whole rewrite. But I couldn't have gotten to like the fifth rewrite that's pretty good unless I did the first draft that was bad. Hardball the Girls of Summer. My first assembly cut was really bad, but I wasn't going to get the cut that I'm super proud of right now without that. Actually, we just announced today a movie that I produced. It's been 4 years in the making, really, right? And it went through many different cuts and different versions. First of all, the script went through many versions, and then the cut went through many versions, and then we had several versions of music and sound before we got everything just right. You don't get the one that's just right without the one that's terrible at the beginning. So I hope that as you jump into your creative work this week, you're basically willing to be wrong. You're basically willing to, go in and make mistakes. If not to find out where to go, to find out where not to go, in order to begin to narrow down that process. So with that being said, have a fantastic creative week. And as always, subscribe to the podcast, to the YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, any, please reach out, get in touch. It's going to be, I'm happy to bring any of your questions here onto the podcast, reach out, throw it up on social media, or who knows, maybe if it's a question that's really fascinating, we hop on a call and discuss. So with that in mind, have a great week, and I'll see you next time.